Welcome to Copilots, the podcast where we review not just the first episode of a show,
but also the second. Some shows just don't have the best pilot episode, and giving it that second chance might just sway your mind.
Here, we take that chance for you and let you know our opinion on if a show deserves more than one shot.
I'm Justice. Alongside me is my co-pilot, Josh. Now, let's get ready for takeoff. Your in-flight entertainment this week will be Copilots Review? Wait, what?
Welcome to Copilots Review, reviewing Copilots Review.
My head hurts already. Do we have to do this?
Well, we don't have to do anything. Nobody's paying us money.
Yeah, but I mean, it is our 2-year anniversary of the show, right?
Also, our 50th episode. It's a bunch of things lining up all at once.
Yeah, fuck it. Let's do this shit, I guess.
So episode 1 of Copilots Review was entitled Pilot Episode, Pilot Candidate, or Emotion the Best, Candidate Forgot Us.
Yeah, so we, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to refer to ourselves as we, or are we just going to review it as a third-person entity? Oh, man, hard choices.
Language is hard, but I think we should start with the summary of the episode, which is actually how we started that episode.
Which, honestly, I feel like we should maybe do that more, like, read the show blurb, maybe?
See, with Pilot Candidate, that made sense. Nobody has ever heard of Pilot Candidate.
Yeah, exactly.
Our first episode, in this episode, we discuss and review the first 2 episodes of Pilot Candidate, an anime with 2 names, neither of which you have ever heard of. A truer sentence we have never written. But
True.
It made sense with Pilot Candidate because nobody's heard of that anime.
Yeah.
Nobody. If you've heard of it, you're lying. Or you've already listened to our episode about it.
Yeah, or you're just weirdly into mech shows like I am, and we're genuinely disappointed by it, and hopefully you managed to suppress it.
On the flip side, something like Angel, the second show we did, people know what Angel is.
That's very true, yeah.
I think. Actually, now that I think about it, people might not know what Angel is.
Yeah, it's like 20 years old. It was a spinoff of a different show.
It was a weird Batman reboot.
No, it was a backdoor pilot for a Batman show starring David Boreanaz that CW apparently never picked up because before CW realized that's just what they make money on.
So, our first review was of Pilot Candidate, and I have some things to say about this. We could go back by and review it bullet point for bullet point, review our old episode. I don't think that's beneficial to anybody.
Yeah, no, if you want to hear us talk about
Pilot Candidate
or Emotion the Best, Candidate Forgot Us, you can just go back and listen to that episode. Now, obviously, there are some issues with our review of that episode. For me, the biggest issue is, man, what the fuck was I doing with audio back then?
Well, I edited the early episodes.
Man, what the fuck were you doing with audio?
Yeah. When we started the podcast, I was the one with the extra free time and the drive to learn how to edit.
And we also had crunchy mics.
We did those.
They're not bad for what they cost. They're just not great either.
Were those recorded on the Monados or?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, those first 2 episodes were recorded on worse microphones too.
Yeah, I think the first 8 main episodes were.
Yeah, that makes sense. But we upgraded mics because even though we're not making money on the show, we were like, we can't keep having this sound. And we also learned that there's some environmental issues with sound in our recording area. Namely, we have to turn off the air conditioning because otherwise...
Yeah, which, the first episode, that's not really a problem.
It never kicks in. You never hear it.
Yeah, Angel, though, it is on constantly in the background. It's this, layer of white noise you can hear. And,
we weren't good enough at editing to remove that at the time.
Yeah.
So that's a big issue, is just the audio quality in general.
Mm-hmm.
I can live with the bad audio quality. I know podcasts live and die by their audio quality.
But
because
every podcast that I've ever listened to that started off not as people have already done a podcast doing a new one or someone that's with a network doing a new show.
Or a celebrity getting a podcast.
Yeah, but every podcast that I've listened to that's just, hey, this is the first time we're doing a podcast, has started off that way.
With audio issues, yeah. My biggest issue with episode 1 is some of our humor... probably wasn't the best then, but has aged horribly even more so.
Yeah.
I'm mainly referring to the jokes about victims, which was the evil alien species in Pilot Candidate.
Which I do get the point of that joke. The joke was that, victim blaming is wrong.
Yeah, but out of context, or even in context, it can come off wrong.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest issue with it. Also, I hated my voice.
My biggest issue is I did an old man boomer thing. I referenced the way one of the first victim looks by calling it a zapfish, like the great zapfish from Splatoon. I did old man boomer thing. It was like Nintendo product. It's from Mario. Yeah, and not just once. I mentioned it like twice and said it was from Mario both times. And as I was doing the editing, I was like, that's just wrong. But it was a good descriptor for it, so I didn't want to change it. But, yeah. I know I was wrong, guys, okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think the description people understood, but it wasn't something that, like, people pointed out or...
Our friends pointed it out to me.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was like, yeah, I know, I fucked up, but it was an accurate description. You knew what I was talking about. I just sounded like an idiot. That's fine, I'm doing a podcast. I'm clearly not entirely smart. This is how I choose to spend my free time and not make money off of it, which is fine, I guess.
Yeah, so the biggest issue, I think, with episode 1, probably audio, some of the jokes, and weirdly, I'm in my late 20s.
You.
My voice has changed significantly from episode 1 to episode 50.
So I think part of it is the audio editing, but I think it's also just knowing what you want to say and how you want to say it.
Yeah, probably. In the early episodes, my voice, I can't stand it. It was the worst part of listening back to episodes 1 and 2 for me.
Yeah. You know what the best part of listening back to episode 1 though was?
The Doors joke?
Yes, it was. I took brief notes over these, and I just had a note again. 1, mechanics are called repairers.
Repairers.
Like, that's just dumb.
Pilot Candidate was a goldmine of humor.
Yes, it was.
We have repairers. We have the 3 Lenas.
Yeah.
We have the mouth flaps and the dub. Like, it was... And doors.
Not knowing what locks are, like...
Oh...
And the fact that 88 has a dress shirt with attached gloves.
The fact that the pilots are branded with numbers on their forearms, which obviously was going to lead into a Holocaust joke, but somebody stopped me.
For the best.
I don't know. I think it was a very obvious joke, which, I mean, I guess is why it's okay to let it go.
Yeah.
Because everybody got the idea. Honestly, Pilot Candidate, goldmine for humor. If you want to watch that show and just take the shit out of it, take the piss... Probably a great show.
You know what I realized we did in that show? And I think we've only done a bit throughout the rest of our stuff. We theorized about like the potential of where that show was going to go quite a bit more than I think we've done other things.
Yeah,
I think that's also just because that show was such a mess and didn't know where it was going to go itself.
Yeah, I think there were some differences between that show stylistically, that first episode, and where the podcast has come. Because I think when we first reviewed Pilot Candidate, we were reviewing the entire series based off of 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Whereas we've gone on, we've come to a idea where we're reviewing the first 2 episodes and whether or not that would be enough to make me want to watch the rest of the series.
Yeah. Which I think is kind of what we were thinking, like what we wanted to do with Pilot Candidate. We just didn't know how to do that.
But also, I would not watch the rest of Pilot Candidate.
No.
On the flip side, I think I would watch the rest of Pilot Candidate just to take the piss out of the entire series.
Watch it in like a
riff tracks
MST3K kind of thing.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like a riff tracks or an
MST3K, Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I've never watched an episode.
Wow.
I know.
And we do this?
I know. I'm a failure at being a nerd. I promise. There are so many things that I should experience, I should know, but I don't. I've also never watched a full episode of SNL, so...
I haven't either, though.
Wild. We're both failures.
I mean, I was also born around the era where SNL was bad, so...
Fair point. Did you have more to say about Pilot Candidate? Like, as a show or as our review?
I mean, as far as our review of it went, I think really, like, I do think on the positive side, I think we have some good, like, dialogue in our back and forth, which, you know, is a good thing. That's something you want. I know why it's there. The end bit where the audio quality is different, it sounds different. We cut the song off and our outro song off and everything. But that's just because we didn't think to record any plugs or anything.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh shit, we should probably at least, like, tell people where they can find us and that they can email us.
Yeah, the start of the podcast, episodes 1 through probably 10 or 11, was an experience. It was learning how to do plugs because neither of us had ever plugged anything ever.
Yeah.
It was learning how to edit, and then it was learning how to splice stuff together because we didn't always do things in the order we needed them in.
I still don't always do things in the order we need them to.
We've just gotten better at the editing process.
A bit. Not much, but a bit.
I think the real thing about Pilot Candidate, like, as far as our review goes, we latch on to a few elements in that show that I think probably were missed on other reviews of the show.
Yeah.
Like, there is a subtle tone of sexism within Pilot Candidate.
Which we do talk about, actually.
Yeah. it's an underlying aspect of that show, which I haven't seen in other written reviews, which I've read some reviews on Crunchyroll and such.
Yeah.
But
we lock onto that. We also lock onto like more basic tropes, like the idiot plot of not having a lock to your giant hangar filled with your mechs you're going to use to save humanity.
You have 5 super weapons to defend all of humanity. Put a fucking lock on the door.
At least one door, man. But we talk about that. We also latch onto like the stereotypes of the characters. Like part of it was mainly just riffing on anime, but also these characters were very stereotypical. Even more so when we met the pilots and they were just portrayed as like a stereotype of what ethnicity they appeared to be.
This person is Chinese. That is their character.
Which, honestly, a lot of like 90s and 2000s anime did that.
Yeah, I will also say I took too many pot shots at the animation. This
too much at the CGI, not the animation so much. The animation could have been better.
Yeah, I took some pot shots that were probably uncalled for. It was a sign of the times that the show was made. And yeah, it looked bad, but like that's because it was from the 90s. It happens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we took too many pot shots about the animation itself. It was more the CGI, which...
Yeah, because honestly, you could just not do the CGI and have animated it instead.
Yeah, but they wanted to use the new technology, which I understand.
And I think the CGI probably cost them more in the long run, right? Like,
yeah, probably. It's just that's kind of what everyone was doing at the time. And like, I know we mentioned it. The mech designs were good. It was just the CGI made it.
I still think the mechs look cool. Like,
yeah, it was just the CGI that messed with it. But
I said in the review they kind of reminded me of Darlin and the Franxx mechs, and they do. Like, they had that same type of vibe.
I said
to
they
them.
kind of reminded me of like not the heavy like defender / tanky builds, but like the mid or the front runner bots in IGPX.
Yeah, which IGPX is an amazing anime. If you've not seen it, it's actually an American original.
I wouldn't say it's amazing. It's definitely good. If you like sports and or mechs, it's a fantastic watch. Still not great, but like definitely worth watching.
Fair enough.
Like, I deeply enjoy it. I recognize it is not a great anime.
I have it on a higher pedestal than it should be on. It was very formative to my love of sports anime.
Yeah. So, also, this has been, I think, the only time we've done this. In our first episode, we say what the next episode's going to be.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Which, uncalled for. We didn't need to do that.
No. It was just to undercut the idea that it might just be an anime podcast. Because so many of those do exist.
Yeah, we definitely don't need that. I think the only time we need to, like, make sure we inform you what the next episode is, and when it's going to be an unexpected 2-parter, something like Hills.
Or Star Wars.
Well, Star Wars was an expected 2-parter. We knew that was going to be...
Yeah.
Oof. But Hills, we were just recording that one, and...
They got away from us for quite a while.
Honestly, what we should have done with...
Vampire Diaries, maybe?
The True Blood, that's the one.
The thing that we haven't released.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've talked about.
Oh, did we never mention that we recorded a True Blood episode?
I think we were vague about it, or I believed it once or twice.
That because True Blood also got out of hand. Like,
yeah, I think our main problem with True Blood though wasn't like Hills. I think we actually had things to talk about. True Blood, we had some things to talk about, but it was also just that the show was so dense in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, True Blood and Hills are about the same in review length. But yeah, Hills,
I think, has better quality.
Naturally separated itself into 2 episodes, whereas True Blood did not.
No, it did not.
Yeah.
So, as is that thing we're supposed to do. And by supposed, I mean self-imposed.
Yes, obviously.
After listening to episode 1 of Copilots Review, would you listen to more?
Are you kidding? No. The hosts are garbage. They reviewed an anime I've never heard of. Why would I even want to watch it? Like, what was the point of listening to that episode? That said, you should listen to more. I'm being a little harsh on ourselves in a joking manner. I think there is...
So I legitimately do still enjoy some of the jokes we made. And
yeah,
I think there's good points we made in our criticism as well.
There are things about episode 1 that I find legitimately funny going back and listening to it.
I still fucking love the fact that they don't have airlocks, they just have air gates.
Because they obviously don't have any locks.
Yeah.
Why would they have locks? The show doesn't make sense if they have locks.
Yeah.
On the flip side, the audio quality is not the best.
Yeah, which honestly, I'm thinking, I make no promises, listeners, I'm thinking that I might go back and just re-edit them just for that sound quality, because that's something I still can do.
Yeah, we could remaster those. There is the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Because we keep all of our old files stored on a hard drive or flash drive, depending on how old they are.
Yeah, so many episodes. But they're there.
It's almost like we've done something like 50 actual reviews.
Yeah, 50 actual reviews. Fucking crazy, man.
How many episodes is that counting our interstitials and other content?
I have no idea. It's not technically 50 reviews. It's like 48, I think.
Yeah, we had a couple two-parters.
Yeah, 1 or 2. But either way, like fucking
76 episodes total.
yeah. So it's we have a bunch of it saved. So like I could go back and remaster all of the early reviews and in the cockpits.
Yeah, I say I wouldn't listen to another episode, but it's a podcast. It was only about 40 minutes of my life to listen to that first episode.
Yeah.
I would give this a second shot just because it is a podcast, and like,
Yeah,
I have a lower bar for media entertaining me when it's a podcast and I'm trying to like
same.
when I just need something at work, podcasts are nice. And also there's something to be said about podcasts that are just two people talking about a subject that they're interested in.
Yeah.
Like, I like plot-driven podcasts or like scripted podcasts, but sometimes at work, when I'm bored or when work's driving me crazy, I just want to listen to a couple people hanging out, talking, and having fun.
I think there's that, but also I know like if I get busy at work, anything that's plot related, I can't listen to it. I pause or I have to go back like 10 minutes because I have no idea what's going on. Whereas if it's just two people fucking talking, I can zone out and I'll zone back and I'll be like, I don't think I missed anything.
I definitely missed stuff the first time through The Wise Man's Fear because I listened to it a lot at work.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I missed it because, yeah.
You didn't realize how much you had zoned out from listening to it.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely something to be said about that style of podcast. And that being the case, I would give it a second shot because it was a podcast.
Yeah. So I think I would listen to episode 2 very much for the same reasons, just because I do think I actually kind of have a lower bar of like tolerance for podcasts than I do for like books, movies, or television shows. And like I said, I do think we have some good jokes. I think we make a few good points. Obviously I'm not interested in the show we talked about, but I think that's part of what makes it slightly more amusing.
I think the fact that as a listener, I would have never heard of Pilot Candidate, I think that has some appeal to it.
Yeah.
Part of me hates mentioning System Mastery on our show.
because
it's like, even though we did not start with the intention of being a System Mastery clone-esque show, we have kind of fallen into that scheme in tiny ways because System Mastery is the best at what they do.
And it doesn't help that they made bonus content for their movie stuff and it's just about TV shows.
But that's where I'm getting to. Movie Mastery and TV Mastery, Movie Mastery being one of their normal shows and TV Mastery being a bonus content, some of those are more interesting just due to the fact that I've never heard of the thing they're reviewing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
When I started listening to Movie Mastery, I specifically only listened to reviews of movies I had seen.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
Because I didn't want to, like, spoil movies I was interested in, or, like, I had no interest in certain movies.
Yeah, I can understand that, though.
But then I just moved on to, like, listening to all of it. And at that point, I was just like, even if I haven't seen the movie, sometimes the review is just better than the movie. In fact, oftentimes, the review can just be better than the movie. Specifically regarding a movie called Hereditary?
Heredity. Yeah.
I didn't realize, like, I was watching that movie and I was like, have I seen this before? But no, I just heard the Movie Master review, and the Movie Master review was better than the movie because the movie gets really bad after the 40-minute mark.
Yeah, it's a good short film if it hadn't stopped when it should have, but it didn't. But anyways, so we're both vaguely yes on listening to more Copilots.
I would understand if somebody was like, no, the audio quality wasn't there for me, I'm not going to give it another shot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I could understand it. There wasn't like the biggest audio quality issues I have is when the sound is inconsistent.
Yes. Especially
when it's inconsistent in the direction of being too quiet. If there are segments of the podcast I just cannot hear,
no. Yeah.
That's annoying.
I do think that's one thing that our earliest episodes have going for them. They are consistent.
Yes.
The sound quality is consistent. It's not great, but there's nothing really peaking really bad or anything dropping off. It all stays pretty much level.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's one of the best things episode 1 has going for it. And some of the comedy.
Yeah. Anyways, though, so Copilots review episode 2.
Which is just titled episode 2, Angel. Which, if you couldn't tell, is a review of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer spinoff, Angel. Now, this episode laid some groundwork that we would take going into the future.
Mm-hmm. One of them being a shtick that we ran with for quite a while.
And then just forgot about.
And then we referenced again on our In the Cockpit 1 year look back.
The Batman.
Yeah, the Batman shtick.
Which, honestly, such a good shtick.
That being that every show is just, there is a Batman. And honestly, I still pretty much believe that.
Look, even our most recent review, Rabbit, is just a show about Jason Todd without
the Red Hood.
Yeah, it's just Jason Todd doing a day job without the Bat family around. That's what that show is.
Yeah, everything goes back to Batman somehow.
They're just like in episode 2 or 3. She was like, "You have an addiction, don't you?" And he's like, "No," but the addiction is getting rid of crime.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, like Angel had some great groundwork for us.
yeah.
Okay, so I haven't watched any more of Angel since we did that review.
Yeah, another
Behind the curtain. Re-listening to that review for this episode made me want to go watch more Angel.
Same, actually.
Which is wild. So I think in that regard, the show does have
some merit.
Merit, yeah.
More importantly, I remembered that man, I just got really behind on working on my EP, A Thug Named Russell.
I don't remember what this joke is in reference to, and I just listened to this episode yesterday.
The girl who's being harassed, her boyfriend's name is Russell, and I was just like, yep, that's right, A Thug Named Russell?
You still haven't released that EP?
I haven't, no. I'm really disappointed in myself. I just let that project, fall off, and I'm sorry, guys. I said I was going to do it, and I lied.
I think another thing Angel does that... This didn't happen in Pilot Candidate, because my notes for Pilot Candidate were fucking meticulous.
Yeah.
Angel, my notes were less meticulous.
I mentioned at a point during the show that I had gotten bored, which is why I had something that we were talking about wrong, and I'd gotten up to go get alcohol.
You can hear yourself get up in that episode too. And there's another part where you can hear me moving around. There are issues in that with the sound quality that we would never allow nowadays.
Oh God, no.
Because you could actually hear me get up at one point and I'm still talking, but I'm moving around to do something. I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a thing you can hear.
Yeah. Now if I want alcohol, I'd just bring it with me beforehand.
Or we just
pause, because we can do that.
Hell, half the time we don't just pause, we just let it sit there, and we'll use that to sample out the silence later.
Yeah, exactly. We just made some bad decisions early on.
100%. But what I was getting at, my notes are less meticulous in Angel, and it's the first time my memory becomes an issue with the show.
Yeah, who would have guessed that would be a problem?
Because episode 2 of Angel, the entire fight scene in the cellar and the hook shot and all
the fact that he had a grappling hook, though, he is Batman.
Yeah, I just, my recollection of that during the review is all just entirely wrong.
Yeah. I still just love the fact that, you remembered incorrectly, but the way it should have gone, because he uses a grappling hook and accidentally pulls down a beam, and you're like, and then they use that to crawl out, and it's just no, they shoot the lock off the door and go out that way.
I still, you just said that, but my brain was like, no, they definitely climbed out with the beam.
That's what would make sense, but no. Also, Christian Kane was in that fucking show.
I don't know. Oh, yeah.
Elliot,
the country musician, Christian Kane.
Yeah.
I will say, Angel as a show, and we kind of touched on this in the review, had some issues with destroying character development that Buffy had put in.
Yeah, it really, really did.
It's weird that the show was created and ostensibly ran by the same person doing Buffy, and yet there was character regressions in Angel from the development that those characters had in Buffy.
Yes. You know what my biggest problem with this episode is, though? From us?
What's that?
Man, we didn't know how fucking shit Joss Whedon was when we recorded this episode, did we?
No, we were very much typical fanboys of that community. Joss Whedon has done so many cool things in the nerd community.
Yeah. Firefly,
Buffy, Marvel, that he just had this aura around him that people were like,
on the
so
upside,
cool.
Though, we didn't praise him too much. We were just no, the show's from Joss Whedon, so it's good.
Yeah. And I still think, in general, that sentence is true. If you say, hey, Joss Whedon made this show,
yeah,
the assumption is it's good, unless it's Dollhouse, which I've heard nothing but awful things about.
Yeah. However, if we had known, obviously, during that show, we have talked about, we would have been disclaimer, the show's made by a huge piece of shit. If you can find a way to get it secondhand and not provide any money or royalties to him, do that.
Which, is easy enough, right?
Yeah.
It's maybe on Netflix?
Yeah, probably.
I don't remember where we watched it. Oh, actually, that's going to bring me back to Pilot Candidate real fast. Back to episode 1 of Copilots.
Oh, yeah.
We watched Pilot Candidate on an app called Verve, which 2 years ago, Verve was the king of anime streaming. And I mean that in every way.
It had the entirety of the Crunchyroll library. It had High Dive, which wasn't a great anime library, but had some shows Crunchyroll didn't.
It had a couple other apps as well.
It had like a
Cartoon Breakfast or whatever it was called.
It had Cartoon Hangover.
Hangover, that's what it was called.
Mondo, their own select stuff that they did.
And Rooster Teeth.
As well as like a horror thriller channel, which I'll be honest, we never watched any shows from that, but I watched that channel all the fucking time because I love schlocky horror movies. Which we don't have that anymore now, I'm sad.
Verve was the top way to have access to these streaming things, because between Crunchyroll and Rooster Teeth alone, you'd spend more money subscribing to those two services individually.
Yeah, you were looking at like $20 a month. Easy.
Than you would through Verve. And Verve was great. Now Verve, less great. It's terrible, actually.
Yeah.
They don't get new animes when the new animes air. They only have the access to the Crunchyroll library, their Selects library, and
Mondo,
which Mondo has almost nothing.
Yeah, it has very little.
So Verve no longer worth it. Crunchyroll is now just a better version of what Verve is now.
Which is just weird because Crunchyroll does own Verve. And it feels very much like they're intentionally killing it off.
Yeah, Verve is definitely a thing that like was just better, and they've slowly been killing it off.
Well, I think it was under the idea of like, well, people aren't going to pay for each individual streaming service, so we should bundle these things together because we'll make it more worthwhile. And then society proved to be idiotic, and we're just like, we'll pay for every single streaming service you can think of.
So. My only point here was Verve, which we did expound the virtues of in our first episode, is no longer a thing that you should expound the virtues of.
Yeah.
Verve is dead. Long live the greatest anime streaming subscription service known to history.
Yeah, it was legitimately great. I enjoyed it. But
back to Angel. I don't have as many qualms with our Angel review as I did with our pilot candidate review.
Honestly, I have one thing that I think we do quite a bit more in this episode, which is problematic. We have a lot more space fillers, and we repeat ourselves a bit more. Especially when we're talking about Tina getting back to her place. There was like 2 to 3 like repeats of like the same bit, and it had more information each time, but it was very much just kind of rehashing itself over and over for a bit there.
That's a fair point. Tina is the one that gets murdered by a vampire in her house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think actually a little bit of that was a bit that just didn't play right.
Yeah, I think so.
The bit was a little bit more information every time based on like how the scene itself plays out.
Yeah, which didn't explain that that's kind of what the scene was doing, because that Angel during its action points did jump back and forth between what was going on a bit.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's a bit that doesn't play out unless you've seen the episode, which why would you have seen Angel if you're listening to the review of us telling you whether or not you should watch Angel?
Yeah.
Ostensibly, our podcast is based around the idea that you listen to the review. If you like what we have to say about the show, you go check out the show.
Yes. Now, obviously, that's not always going to be the case. You're going to have times where you're going to be like, man, that show was great. I want to hear what people have to say about it. Or you're like, man, that show was horrible. I want to hear what people have to say about it.
Exactly. So the bit doesn't play well in retrospect. Similarly, we mentioned this earlier, the biggest issue with episode 2, in my opinion, was the air conditioning.
Yeah.
The nonstop sound of...
Yeah, that was mind-numbing.
It's a little bit annoying. And that alone would actually... That episode 2 is enough to turn me off of listening to more Copilots based on the air conditioning.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And that sucks.
That's why I'll probably edit these.
Like, that sucks the most. The fact that there may be people that heard episode 2, had the insistent air conditioning noise plaguing them, and were like, no thank you. That's the worst.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And I totally understand the reasoning there, though, because that's enough of a reason for me to stop listening to a podcast, too.
Yeah, same. Though, on the bright side, I think we did well in both the first 2 episodes, and I think we continue to do well, for the most part, is we do reference things visually the best that we can, whether it be referring to the camera angle, or kind of how a fight scene plays out, or even just the way a character looks. Like, there's a vampire thug who we both give a description of who we think they look like. I said, like, knock off Luke Wilson. And
I said a young Neil Gaiman. Yeah, that was the description I used.
And like I said, I made this Fish comparison in the first one. And I will always remember the Skeksis Toucan Sam description I gave in Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters. And I still feel like those are accurate descriptions. And I feel like they're fairly vivid, right?
If you have a basis for those, if you know who Neil Gaiman is.
Or you know Luke Wilson.
And you have the ability to imagine them a little younger or like a little more generic in the Luke Wilson knockoff scenario, you can kind of get an idea of what we're looking at.
Yeah. I do think we give a fairly decent attempt at visual descriptors.
Yeah, which, seeing as most of what we review is a visual medium, probably important.
Yeah, that's all really that I had there for that.
I think this is the first time we reviewed a completely audio medium. We've mentioned podcasts before. I think you actually... Yeah,
I did review an episode for one thing.
For the Christmas special, yeah. That was the most we've done as far as reviewing strictly audio source. Everything else has had some type of visual component to it, even if that visual component made no sense, like a couple of the YouTube horror shows.
Yeah. Oh, God. 232 was so bad.
232 is bad, but that's not what I was thinking of. The one I was thinking of...
the first Firefly, the weird ice cream thing?
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
That was a thing.
Yeah. So, for the majority of this, I do appreciate our Batman shtick. I do think we got a bit carried away with that, but we did realize that in the show, and we're just like, nah, and kind of cut off on it, which I think is good.
Did we realize that we overplayed the Batman shtick, or did we forget about the Batman shtick?
Well, I was talking about in this episode specifically.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point.
Yeah. I don't know about so much overall in the oeuvre of our collection.
You know, I would be interested in going back and looking at Kiss Sis and applying the Batman...
Oh, God, no. Please don't.
...concept to Kiss Sis.
It's just Bruce Timm's bad adaptation of Killing Joke.
Oh, actually, you're right. Never mind. Okay, fine. You win.
Bruce Timm did great with the animated series for the most part, but for that one, nah.
Yeah, so, like I said, our Angel review made me want to watch more Angel, which I find in some way a success. But otherwise, the Angel review was not as interesting to me as the Pilot Candidate review.
No, I think the most interesting part of it was really just the realization that, yeah, David Boreanaz would have been a good Batman if DC had gotten their shit together a lot earlier.
But would he have been good as Batman, or would he have been good as Bruce Wayne?
I think we agreed on both, actually.
Visually, I can see him as a very compelling Bruce Wayne.
And I think he could be a good Batman with all the edgy one-liners.
That's a fair point. Huh. DC really should have.
Yeah.
Who was the most recent Batman at that time?
1999. Was that Clooney?
I think that was Clooney.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I think he would have been a better Batman. I think he would have been better than Clooney.
Huh. However, Clooney was also the one where they were just like, we're done with Batman for a while, guys.
So, I will say, getting into the, would you continue listening to this?
Yeah.
I think one of the intriguing things about a podcast like this, a podcast that's a review-based podcast.
Yes.
Is, while there might be ongoing shticks between episodes, like the Batman shtick, you don't need to listen to every episode.
No, it is very much a situation where it's just like, hey, they're talking about this thing here, or this thing here.
Which brings me back to where I said Angel is less interesting as a listener to me than Pilot Candidate.
Yeah.
And that's because Angel is very much a very formula-driven show that people are already aware of.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't watched Angel, you've watched shows like Angel. I don't think there's shows like Pilot Candidate.
No, probably for the better, but...
There are mech animes, there are space battle animes. Pilot Candidate is its own fresh, steaming pile of garbage that is very unique and very interesting to hear people talk about.
Yeah, I would think so.
So, I think having listened to both episode 1 and episode 2, as a listener, I probably wouldn't listen to every episode going forward.
No, I'd probably just listen to the ones that sound interesting or are talking about a show I either want to watch or I've watched and I just want to hear someone bash on.
I might skip the next episode, which is Wayne. Which is
sad. So sad. Wayne is great.
Episode 4 was Ghost Stories, and there's no way I would have missed that. And then after Ghost Stories, we hit,
G.I. Joe, I think, next.
Kiss Sis was a couple episodes after that.
Yeah, that was 7. Ugh.
Basically, we should be an anime review podcast. I've listened to all of our anime review episodes just based on having listened to Pilot Candidate.
Okay, so you're a weeb.
I also want to listen to the Minecraft Story Mode episode just based on the fact that it was Minecraft Story Mode.
Yeah.
Tattoo Teenage Alien Fighters probably as well. Basically, if I saw something that I either did not recognize or already knew was horrible based on these first 2 episodes, I would listen to that.
Yeah, I can get behind that idea.
Having listened to the Angel review, I don't think I would be like, oh, hey, look, they reviewed Vampire Diaries, a show I've heard pretty good things about. I'd be like, I could probably skip that one.
Yeah. The only reason I think I'd stop to listen to that one is I do think we mentioned we have a guest in our description for it. And I'd be like,
yes,
I'm vaguely interested in that, especially because that should be our first instance of a guest. Our first or second. That was either episode 6 or 8. I don't remember which one.
Yeah, Vampire Diaries was the first episode with a guest.
Yeah.
So I think we had Hunter on that one.
No, Vampire Diaries was Chris.
Oh, Chris, that's right. Mm-hmm. Hunter was on Minecraft.
Hunter was on Minecraft and Money Heist.
That's right.
But I think that's the only reason why I would have listened to the Vampire Diaries episode, honestly.
Fair points. So, would you continue listening to Copilots based on these first 2 episodes? Like I said, I would probably listen to
I might listen to some sporadic things here and there. I don't think I would listen to every episode. I think what I would do is I'd probably listen to a few episodes here and there. And then when the audio quality got better, I might start listening to more and more episodes just to see if it's worth it.
So, the thing is, I was just thinking about this in my brain while you were talking.
Yeah.
Doing some thinking. All of my favorite podcasts I've started
by just jumping around?
By just listening to episodes that sounded intriguing to me.
Same.
And then over time, I began to like the hosts.
Mm-hmm.
I began to like how the hosts presented things. And I developed a little bit of a parasocial relationship. Not
Gross.
To a toxic degree, but to a point where I kind of knew the individuals as individuals.
Yeah, and you're like, hey.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a great thing.
So
I'll find something amusing about what they're doing or the way they're talking about it.
So in that regard, Copilots has the start of how I develop favorite podcasts.
Yeah, I can see that.
So that is probably a good thing. I would say that for me, at least as a podcast listener, that's a good thing. That's how I go about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same way I do it. I know it's the same way.
I mean, except for obviously story-driven podcasts.
Story-driven podcast, that doesn't work, obviously.
It's a different thing entirely. But most of the podcasts I listen to are not story-driven.
Yeah, same.
And if they are, I binge through them and then never listen to them again because what's the point? Unless it's King Falls. I go back and look. King Falls is the only story-driven podcast that I re-listen to at all.
I don't.
That's sad. King Falls was very good.
Oh, no, I would, but I don't because,
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we both agree that we would sporadically listen to random episodes of Copilots Review based on the first 2 episodes of Copilots Review.
So that's like a maybe listen to the podcast thing?
Honestly, better than I thought.
Same. I came into re-listening to our shit being fully, yeah, I don't know why anyone fucking listens to this. It's horrible. And I'm walking away from it I understand why we sometimes have listeners. Weird, but okay.
It went from being why would it, if you listened to episode 1 and 2, why would anybody listen to more of this? Our audio quality was garbage and we didn't know what we were doing, to being sometimes those guys were funny.
Yeah, occasionally.
And they made good points. And also, what the fuck is pilot candidate?
Yeah.
So, I came in the same regard as you. I was like, there's no way I would suggest this show.
At that point to anyone.
But honestly, yeah, actually, I like our podcast. That's a little insane.
Honestly, though, it's pretty nice to
It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling to like our own product.
So, I think instead of maybe taking the next in the cockpit to talk about the past year or 2 years of this shit like we did last year, I feel like there's probably not as much to talk about because I think we do hit a lot of what we found important or enjoyed about the podcast last year, and I think it stayed pretty much the same. But just knowing from where we started and now refreshing that to now, how are you feeling about that and overall what do you think about how we've gone from there to here? Yeah,
I wanted to save this for in the cockpit.
I mean, we can if you want.
But if you want to tackle it here, some ennui. There's been times where I've been do we have to do an episode?
Yeah.
What's the point? It can just stop. But at the end of the day, I'm glad we're still doing it.
Same.
It's just there were episodes, and I'm sure that listeners could probably pinpoint some of those episodes if they listened through them. And be yeah, this one seems like there was less effort or there was less
excitement to do the show, yeah,
in there. But I think we're still growing. Maybe not as an audience thing.
Yeah,
our audience has been pretty stagnant. But I think we're still growing
as a show.
Yeah, and there was that insane moment in where we did have a spike of audience growth that I still have no explanation for.
We have seen a few spikes of audience growth here and there, and The first big one, we know why that happened.
Yeah, that was, we ran advertisement.
The second one wasn't as big as the other two, and we were fairly certain it was just still based on that because it wasn't too far after it.
No, there was a recent spike.
But there was the most recent one. We've had 3, really.
Okay.
We had 2 big ones, and one that was that's kind of weird, but it's probably still just from that ad thing. And then we had the newest one, which was just all of a fucking sudden, out of nowhere.
That was around Archive 81's episode, right?
Yeah, just a bit before, I think.
Yeah. But, yeah, that said, I mean, I don't see myself quitting or like stepping away from the podcast.
Yeah.
Despite that having been an issue I've had in the past year, I think it's just been.
There's just some days you don't want to fucking do shit, and sometimes that happens to be the podcast.
Yeah, that's a
which
fair way to put it.
Is understandable. Like, I think we've missed one episode.
No.
2?
We've never missed an episode.
No, I think we took 1 week off once.
No, we did. It was 3 days late, but we've never.
Oh, yeah.
I think I was sick. COVID. That was,
yeah.
Well, even then, we didn't miss an episode. We just delayed it.
Yeah. So, like, 2 years, we've done 3 episodes a month minimum, a bit more for some months.
Yeah.
So, like, honestly, I'm pretty fucking happy with the fact that we've managed to do that despite, like, a bunch of just, like, different shit. Like, life continues on despite all this. So it's just like, well, I'm busy doing this thing or I have to do this thing. It's just like, can we fit the podcast in there somewhere?
And then there's that moment where you realize that you might be a masochist because you're about to add more stuff to your podcast plate because you're about to launch a Patreon.
Yeah.
I think the Patreon will probably officially launch on the 12th with the next interstitial.
Yep.
We're not promising any additional monthly audio content, but we will have some unreleased content on the Patreon, as well as a written article I'm going to be doing every week because, again, masochists.
Yeah. I know we mentioned a long time ago, basically episode 3 or 6 or something, not mainline episodes, but in the cockpit stuff, that we had some ideas for Patreon stuff, which we still have the same ideas. The issue is just like, it's hard to sit down and record additional audio content.
It's wild because when we started the podcast, I was working 48, 50 hours a week most weeks, but currently I'm at like 70 if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Closer to 80 if I'm not. And finding time to fit recording, editing, watching, noting, recording, editing, and bonus content is just an insanity.
Yeah.
And yet we're going to do it. So
as far as those ideas we had, we still have them. We don't know exactly how we're going to put it in there on the Patreon. We're thinking like a threshold of like monthly income, which yes, that's ridiculous, but like that's kind of the only way we can do that, to be able to spare like, hey, we have this, like we can spare to have a few hours off or whatever.
I will say, I know one of our bonus content ideas was to go back and watch previous episodes.
Yes, previous series
and review those or give our reactions to the individual episodes. I kind of want to do that for Pilot Candidate. Like, honest to God, after listening to our review of Pilot Candidate, I want to go back and finish that series and just...
No, that makes complete sense. Like, that show is so fucking weird that, like, I think it'd be...
That show was special.
True.
And not just because it was the first show we reviewed.
Yeah. Though, like Josh said, we will have some unreleased things on there. For the most part, that'll still be at like the base level. You'll have access to those. And it's really just going to be things that like we couldn't salvage audio-wise to like, actually publish.
I think the best example is we did a review of a show that was a spinoff of a movie that we greatly enjoyed.
We did it with a friend of the show.
A friend of the show who has had years of career experience in a field related to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he provided some really good insights. Really good commentary.
But because it was with a third party and they weren't here, we had to do it over the internet, and
there was recording issues on both sides of that call.
Yes, which we were unaware of during the call, and we'd stopped and played it back during the call at a point, and it sounded fine. It just didn't end up being fine in the end, and we couldn't really find a way to fix it. It's still technically listenable. You can hear it all. It just has some audio problems that we weren't happy with putting out there on a main feed.
Yeah, I think something like that. And then there's obviously the Cursed review.
Yeah.
There's the True Blood one that I mentioned earlier.
I mean, we can mention the Cursed review. We did an actual review of it, remember?
Oh, yeah, The Witcher. There's the Cursed Witcher review.
Which I think we still have the original of that somewhere.
It's still sitting around somewhere. So yeah, there's some bonus content that's ready to go. It just needs found, formatted, and put up on the Patreon.
Yeah, but those will be things we will put in at that base level where it's just like, hey, here's some shit that got fucked up, but it did get recorded, so here you go.
But we'll have more details about all of that on the interstitial content on the 12th of this month. Otherwise, we just want to thank you for flying with us for these last 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah, fucking crazy, man. And hopefully you'll continue to fly with us as we continue on forever, how long we can.
Forever. You didn't need to add the end of that.
I'm sorry. I like to add qualifiers because I don't like being told I lied about things.
No. We're immortal. This is going to last forever.
Wait. Did starting a podcast give me immortality?
No.
Oh.
Anyways, if you would like to contact us, either to suggest a show, to talk about something we said, to congratulate us on surviving for 2 years, which is a feat in the world of podcasting.
It's a feat in the world today.
Or if you just want to, I don't know,
do whatever you do as a person. Who knows? You're all unique.
You can reach out to us directly on Twitter at Copilots Review.
You can email us at copilotsreview@gmail.com.
You could hit us up on our Discord, which you can find on our website, copilotsreview.simplecast.com. Or if maybe you're not looking for that direct parasocial connection, you could leave a review
wherever you listen to our podcast at.
And if we find that, we will read that out and let people know your beautiful or not so beautiful words about the podcast.
Yeah. And if you've left a review somewhere and we've never mentioned it, we probably don't know what podcast listening app or site you've used. And if you want us to do that, just shoot us an email or tweet us
on Twitter, yeah.
And we'll find it.
We'll find it and read it. And thank you for your support. And if you don't want to take the time to leave a review or you have nothing to directly say to us, there's actually another way you can help support the podcast.
An even better way, really.
And that is to tell your friends about it.
Yeah.
Or your strangers about it. Or your children or your parents.
Are they your strangers?
All strangers are your strangers. Again, thank you for flying with us. It's been a wild 2 years, honestly.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm looking forward to another 2 years. Another 3, 4, 17.
6 seasons in a movie?
6 seasons in a movie. That's how long this podcast is going. 6 seasons and a movie.
Oh man, that's fucking horrible. We haven't dictated what a season is.